Rohan Malik was a man people spoke about in low voices. He did not shout, and he did not threaten, yet everyone feared him. He walked through the city like he owned every street and every shadow. His business was never spoken of clearly, but everyone knew it carried power. Wherever Rohan went, silence followed him. People avoided his eyes and stepped aside quickly. Beside him always walked his German shepherd named Bruno. Bruno was large, strong, and watchful. His dark eyes never stopped moving. His body stayed tense like a coiled wire. Many said Bruno was more frightening than his owner. No trainer could handle him. No guard dared touch him. Those who tried learned quickly to stay away. Bruno trusted only one person, and that was Rohan. The bond between them was built on survival and control. Rohan had raised Bruno in a harsh world. Commands were clear and strict. Emotions were never part of training. Love was not something either of them understood well. They simply existed together, guarding each other from everything else. One late afternoon, Rohan drove to an old housing area near the edge of the city. The buildings were worn and crowded. Paint peeled from the walls and staircases cracked with age. Children played near broken steps while adults watched from windows. When Rohan's car stopped, the street changed. Voices dropped and movement slowed. Parents called their children back inside. Doors closed softly but fast. Everyone knew who he was. Bruno stepped out of the car first. His paws touched the ground firmly and his head lifted at once. He scanned the area with sharp focus. Rohan followed calmly, holding the leash with confidence. This place belonged to him now, though the people living there barely survived. He came to inspect a property matter, but his presence alone felt heavy to the residents. Among the children nearby stood a small girl named Mina. She was 6 years old with simple clothes and curious eyes. She held a small paper bag filled with bread pieces. She had been sent by her mother to share food with a neighbor. When others ran, Mina stayed still. She looked at Bruno with interest rather than fear. Her gaze was quiet and steady. She did not scream or hide. She simply watched. Bruno noticed her immediately. His ears lifted and his body stiffened. The leash tightened slightly as Rohan felt the change. He expected the usual reaction. Bruno often barked or pulled when strangers stared too long. But this time something different happened. Bruno stopped walking. He lowered himself slowly and sat down. His eyes stayed fixed on Mina. The street froze. People held their breath. Rohan felt confusion rise inside him. Bruno had never reacted this way before. He had never sat calmly in front of a stranger. Rohan watched closely, ready to pull the leash back at any moment. Mina did not move away. She tilted her head slightly as if studying Bruno. Her small hands held the paper bag gently. She seemed to sense something others could not. Slowly she stepped forward. Gasps echoed from nearby windows. Someone whispered for her to stop. Mina ignored them. She knelt on the ground and placed the bag down carefully. She took out a small piece of bread and held it in her open palm. Her movements were slow and respectful. She did not rush or shout. Rohan's heart beat faster, though his face stayed calm. Years of control kept his expression steady. He had seen danger many times, and Bruno had always responded as trained. This was new and unpredictable. Bruno leaned forward slightly but did not growl. He sniffed the air. Mina kept her hand still. She did not try to touch him yet. She spoke softly, using a voice meant for comfort. She said hello as if greeting an old friend. The word floated gently in the air. Bruno took one careful step forward. His tail remained low but relaxed. The people watching could not believe what they saw. Mina then did something unexpected. She closed her eyes. She spoke again in a calm tone. She said that dogs like him were not bad. She said they were just tired of guarding. Rohan felt a strange tightening in his chest. He had never heard someone speak to Bruno like that. Not with fear or command but with understanding. Bruno moved closer until his nose nearly touched Mina's hand. He sniffed the bread and then her skin. Slowly he lowered his head. Mina opened her eyes and gently placed her hand on his head. Bruno did not pull away. He leaned into the touch. His eyes closed. The street remained silent. Rohan stood frozen. He loosened his grip on the leash without realizing it. For the first time since Bruno was a pup, the dog stood calm without command. Mina smiled softly. She stroked Bruno's fur with small, careful movements. Bruno stayed still, trusting her completely. Rohan watched as years of strict control seemed to melt away in seconds. He did not understand how a child could reach where no one else could. Something inside him shifted. A memory stirred from long ago when he too had been small and unafraid of the world. Mina looked up at Rohan without fear. Her eyes were honest and clear. She asked nothing and expected nothing. She simply returned her attention to Bruno. Rohan felt the weight of every choice he had made in his life. He saw himself in Bruno. Always alert, always guarding, never resting. The little girl had not tamed the dog with strength or command. She had done it by listening. Rohan realized that this moment was not about control. It was about trust. As the sun dipped lower, the street slowly returned to life. Doors opened again and whispers spread. Rohan knew this was only the beginning of something he did not yet understand. He gently pulled the leash back, but Bruno did not resist. The dog looked once more at Mina before walking away. Mina waved as if saying goodbye to an old friend. Rohan walked back to his car feeling different. He did not look back, but the image stayed with him. The feared dog had found calm. The feared man had felt something he had buried for years. And a small girl stood at the center of it, all unaware of how much she had changed that day. That night Rohan could not sleep properly. The image of Bruno sitting calmly beside the little girl stayed in his mind. He had seen fear many times in people, but never trust like that. Bruno usually slept near the door, alert to every sound. That night the dog rested quietly with his head on the floor. His breathing was slow and steady. Rohan watched him from the chair and felt uneasy. Something had changed and he could not control it. Control was the one thing Rohan always relied on. Without it, he felt exposed. The next morning, Rohan returned to the same housing area. He told himself it was for business, but he knew the truth. He wanted to see if what happened was real. Bruno walked beside him again, but his posture was different. He was still alert, but less tense. When they reached the building steps, Bruno stopped. His ears lifted and his tail moved slightly. Mina stepped out from the doorway holding the same paper bag. She smiled when she saw Bruno. Rohan felt a strange calm settle over the street. People watched from a distance, whispering among themselves. Mina walked forward without hesitation. Bruno moved toward her gently. Rohan stopped walking and allowed the leash to loosen. Mina knelt again and placed the bag down. She did not offer bread this time. She simply sat there. Bruno lowered himself beside her and rested his head near her knee. The sight left the onlookers stunned. This was the same dog they feared for years. Now he looked peaceful. Mina spoke softly, telling Bruno about her day. She talked about school and about helping her mother. Bruno listened as if he understood every word. Rohan stood there unsure of what to do. He had never seen someone speak to Bruno like that. Guards and trainers spoke in commands. Mina spoke with warmth. Rohan finally stepped closer. Mina looked up at him. She did not look scared. She greeted him politely. Rohan nodded back, unsure how to respond. He asked her name and she told him. He asked why she was not afraid of Bruno. Mina said fear makes noise and listening makes space. Her words surprised him. They were simple yet deep. Over the next few days, Rohan kept coming back. Each time Bruno reacted the same way. He waited for Mina. He stayed calm when she was near. He refused food until she appeared. Rohan tried giving commands, but Bruno only followed them after looking at Mina first. This bothered Rohan at first. He felt replaced. Then he felt curious. He started watching more closely. Mina never rushed Bruno. She never pulled his ears or climbed on him. She respected his space. She listened to his movements and moods. Rohan began to sit nearby during these meetings. He heard Mina talk about her life. Her home was small and her family struggled, but she never complained. She spoke with honesty and hope. Bruno stayed close to her every time. One evening Mina asked Rohan why Bruno was always guarding. Rohan did not answer right away. No one had asked him that before. He finally said Bruno was trained to protect. Mina shook her head gently and said protection without rest makes the heart tired. Those words stayed with Rohan. He remembered his own past. He grew up fast and learned early that weakness brought pain. He built walls around himself just like Bruno. Watching Mina and Bruno together made him reflect. He saw how calm did not mean weak. He saw how listening could change behavior more than force. Slowly Rohan began to change his routine. He stopped rushing. He stayed longer in the area. He noticed people more. He saw how children laughed when Bruno lay quietly nearby. One afternoon a boy tripped and fell near the steps. Before anyone could react, Bruno stood up and walked over. The boy froze in fear. Mina called Bruno softly. Bruno stopped and sat. Mina helped the boy up. The boy realized Bruno would not hurt him and smiled. The fear that once ruled the street began to fade. Parents watched in disbelief. Rohan felt something warm inside him. He had ruled through fear for years. Now he was seeing respect grow without force. Rohan started asking Mina questions. He asked how she knew Bruno would listen. She said everyone listens when they feel seen. Rohan thought about all the people who avoided his eyes. He realized he had never allowed himself to be seen either. One evening he brought Bruno without the leash. The guards protested, but Rohan insisted. Bruno walked calmly and stayed close to Mina. Nothing went wrong. That moment marked a shift. Rohan trusted Bruno and Bruno trusted Mina. The street changed slowly. People greeted Rohan carefully. Some even smiled. Bruno became a symbol of calm rather than fear. Mina became the bridge between two worlds. Rohan watched all of this quietly. He did not speak much, but his presence felt lighter. He realized power did not always need silence. Sometimes it needed understanding. As the days passed, Rohan knew this connection was not temporary. Mina had reached something deep inside Bruno and inside him as well. The man who once controlled everything began learning to let go. And the dog who once guarded every moment finally learned to rest. Weeks passed and the bond between Mina and Bruno grew stronger. Every afternoon Bruno waited near the steps before Mina even appeared. His ears lifted at the smallest sound of her footsteps. When she came he walked to her calmly like it was the most natural thing in the world. Rohan watched this routine again and again. He had never planned for this change, yet he did not stop it. Instead he allowed it to grow. The guards noticed the difference in him. He spoke less sharply and listened more. His orders were still firm, but his tone had softened. Rohan began to learn small things about Mina. He learned that she loved stories and asked many questions. She liked drawing pictures on old paper. She helped her mother with chores and never complained. She talked to Bruno as if he was a friend who understood everything. Bruno responded with patience and calm. He no longer pulled at sudden noises. He no longer growled at strangers passing by. He stayed alert but peaceful. People who once feared him now watched with curiosity. One evening Rohan sat on the steps while Mina talked to Bruno. He asked Mina why she spent so much time with the dog. Mina replied that Bruno listened without judging. She said he did not see her as small or weak. He just stayed. Rohan felt those words deeply. He realized no one had ever stayed with him without expecting something in return. Power always came with demands. Respect came with distance. This was different. Rohan started bringing food for Meena and her family. He did it quietly without announcement. Meena thanked him politely but did not treat him differently. That honesty surprised him. He was used to people changing when they received help. Meena remained the same. She talked to him openly and asked him about Bruno's past. Rohan told her some of it. He spoke about training and harsh places. Meena listened carefully. She did not interrupt. She did not judge. As Rohan spoke, he felt memories surface. Long nights and cold lessons. He remembered learning to survive by never trusting. He realized Bruno had learned the same way. Meena placed her hand on Bruno's back as Rohan spoke. Bruno leaned into the touch. It felt like understanding was being shared without words. One day, a group of strangers entered the area looking for trouble. The mood shifted quickly. People retreated indoors. Rohan stood up ready to respond. Bruno moved forward instinctively. Meena noticed the change and stood beside Bruno. She spoke calmly and placed her hand on his shoulder. Bruno paused. He stayed close to her. Rohan handled the situation with authority but without anger. The strangers left without conflict. Everyone watched in silence. They saw control without fear. After that day, people began greeting Rohan openly. Children waved at Bruno. The street felt alive again. Rohan noticed how different this felt from respect built on fear. He realized he had carried a heavy weight for years without knowing it. Watching Meena and Bruno showed him another way. Rohan began making changes beyond the street. He adjusted his business dealings. He listened before deciding. He trusted more. Those around him noticed the shift. Some were confused. Some were relieved. Rohan did not explain himself. He did not need to. He was learning quietly. Meena continued visiting Bruno every day. She told him stories and shared small joys. Bruno followed her movements carefully. He lay beside her as she drew pictures. He walked her to the doorway when she went home. Rohan watched all of it. He felt protective but not controlling. It was a new feeling for him. One afternoon, Meena asked Rohan if Bruno could stay with her for a while. Rohan hesitated. He had never let Bruno out of his sight. Meena waited patiently. Rohan looked at Bruno. The dog looked calm and trusting. Rohan agreed. Bruno stayed with Meena under careful watch. Nothing went wrong. Bruno remained gentle and calm. Rohan felt proud and surprised. That night Rohan reflected on his life. He saw how far he had come and how far he still needed to go. He realized Meena had not only changed Bruno. She had changed him. She had shown him that strength could exist without fear. That listening could be more powerful than control. As days turned into weeks, Rohan understood this was not just a phase. It was a turning point. He did not know what the future held, but he felt ready. For the first time he felt peace instead of tension. Bruno slept more soundly. Meena laughed more freely. The street felt safer. Something powerful had begun. Not through force or command, but through patience and understanding. And Rohan knew that whatever came next would be shaped by this change. Time continued to move quietly, and the change around Rohan became impossible to ignore. The street that once fell silent at his arrival now carried normal sounds. People talked more freely, and children played without fear. Bruno walked calmly beside Rohan with a softer presence. His eyes were still sharp, but his body was relaxed. Meena remained the center of this transformation. She never acted proud or aware of her impact. She simply stayed kind and patient. Rohan began visiting the area without guards. This decision shocked many. He walked with Bruno alone and greeted people with a nod. Some responded slowly at first, but trust grew with time. Mina watched these changes with a gentle smile. She never questioned Rohan about his past or his power. She treated him as a person, not a title. This allowed Rohan to be himself for the first time in years. One evening Rohan noticed Mina sitting quietly. She was not talking as much as usual. He asked if something was wrong. Mina explained that her family might need to move because their building was unsafe. Rohan listened carefully. He felt a familiar urge to control the situation quickly, but he resisted. Instead he asked what Mina wanted. She said she wanted to stay near Bruno and her friends. Rohan nodded. The next week repairs began on the building. Workers arrived and fixed the walls and stairs. The area slowly improved. Rohan made sure it was done respectfully. Mina watched with curiosity. She thanked him but did not see it as a favor. She saw it as care. That difference mattered to Rohan deeply. Bruno adapted easily to the growing number of people around him. He stayed calm and observant. Children learned how to approach him gently. Parents relaxed and smiled more often. The dog that once ruled through fear now inspired trust. Rohan watched this with pride and humility. One afternoon Rohan made a decision he never thought possible. He removed Bruno's training collar and replaced it with a simple one. The act felt symbolic. He was letting go of old habits. Bruno responded by staying close without command. The bond between them felt different now. It was built on understanding rather than control. Mina continued to teach Bruno small things through play and calm presence. She showed him how to lie still during noise and how to relax during crowds. Bruno learned quickly. Rohan realized the dog had always been capable of this. He just never had the chance. As weeks turned into months, Rohan's reputation began to change. People spoke of him differently. Not with fear but with respect. He was still powerful but now approachable. This balance felt right to him. He did not feel the need to prove himself anymore. One evening Rohan sat with Mina and Bruno watching the sun set. The street was calm and warm. Mina leaned against Bruno and laughed softly. Rohan felt a sense of peace he had never known. He understood now that strength did not require distance. It required connection. Rohan asked Mina what she thought made Bruno change. Mina replied that Bruno was never broken. He was just unheard. Rohan felt those words settle deep inside him. He realized the same was true for himself. From that day Rohan committed to listening more and reacting less. He changed how he led and how he lived. Bruno remained by his side not as a weapon but as a companion. Mina continued growing surrounded by trust and care. The story of the feared dog and the powerful man spread quietly. People spoke of the little girl who listened and changed everything. Mina never claimed credit. She simply smiled and kept listening. And in that simple act she had transformed a life, a street, and a future.